a community organizer. He fights for farm worker justice, and we believe that he was targeted for everything that he's been doing.
He's not dangerous, and if you love each other so much, if he go back to Iran, they're gonna kill him for sure.
The judge has blood on his hands when he goes back to Iran.
The law hasn't changed, but the implementation of if we can detain them, we will detain them.
We're not bad people. We're just here trying to make a living for our families.
Thanks for joining us. I'm King 5's race and equity reporter Sharon Yoo. In this episode of Facing Race, we look into ICE's presence and impact on Washington. This month started off with a workplace raid in Bellingham. An ICE spokesperson said they arrested 37 workers at Mount Baker Roofing, saying, quote, they fraudulently represented their immigration status and submitted fraudulent documents to seek employment. A community member recorded this video. She's basically saying they're arresting good, hardworking people. According to its website, Mount Baker Roofing has been in business in the Bellingham area for more than 40 years. The owner, Mark Kuski, issued a statement saying in part, quote, policies like the enforcement action carried out today directly harm small businesses like ours, making it increasingly difficult to operate and further inflating the prices paid by consumers. Community to Community Development is a social equity justice nonprofit. Liz Darrow says they're keeping an eye on any developments and working to figure out who the 37 people taken into custody are.
You know, they've got families in our community, and I'm sure that we know some of them just through being here as an organization, but we haven't heard anything about people who are directly connected with our work having been detained. It can be really hard to get the details because, you know, there's no dashboard, there's no transparent reporting.
While the 37 people were taken to the Northwest ICE processing facility in Tacoma to be detained, as King 5's Jim Nelson shows us, the Bellingham community rallied.
The CEO of the company confirmed that the people taken into custody worked here. He spoke out against the raid as family members wonder what's next. Hours after ICE raided a Bellingham business, the community rallied.
And it's wrong to take our community apart, drag out fathers, sons, brothers, family members of all kinds who are part of they're paying taxes, they're part of our community, and it's just wrong.
A handful of demonstrators gathered at the intersection of Bakerview and Meridian, and for some, it's personal. She tells me she showed up at Mount Baker Roofing after the raid started, capturing video of uniformed agents standing outside with an SUV, a van, and a bus behind them. With her daughter translating, Perez Juarez says her nephew was among the 37 employees taken into custody.
Yeah, we saw him there. We were there since the morning, since everything started. It was really sad seeing him say help.
An ICE spokesperson says the 37 people, quote, fraudulently represented their immigration status and submitted fraudulent documents to seek employment. ICE said they were taken to a detention center in Tacoma.
We feel very sad that a lot of families are getting destroyed.
The CEO of Mount Baker Roofing said in a statement, quote, it is with a heavy heart that we navigate this moment. Many of those impacted have worked for us as tax-paying employees for years, if not decades. Adding, policies like the enforcement action carried out Wednesday directly harm small businesses like ours.
Maybe the worst day in a long time, and more to come.
The CEO of Mount Baker Roofing said the company is still gathering information and cooperating with authorities, adding that the focus is on the well-being of employees while still serving the community. In Bellingham, Jim Nelson, King 5 News.
That same day, at Seattle's ICE field office, protesters demanded the release of UW lab tech and legal permanent resident Llewellyn Dixon. Dixon has been in the U.S. legally for 50 years, but she was arrested last month at SeaTac. Llewellyn Dixon's flight home to the Philippines was supposed to be routine.
She flew to the Philippines last year, and we actually flew to Turkey as well. no problem.
Lonnie Madriaga is Dixon's niece. She says her sister was with Dixon at SeaTac last month when they returned home.
She waited an hour, and then 2 hours passed by, 3 hours passed by, and we're like, whoa, something is wrong.
Eventually, they got a call. Dixon was detained at the Northwest ICE processing facility in Tacoma. Alex Reby is an immigration attorney with the firm representing Dixon. Reby says what's happening to Dixon isn't illegal, but would have been considered highly unusual in previous administrations.
The law hasn't changed, but the implementation of if somebody's deportable, we will issue them a notice to appear. And if we can detain them, we will detain them. I think that has certainly been the case in what we've been seeing.
The tripping point? A 2001 conviction in a bank embezzlement case, a non-violent misdemeanor charge for someone who has lived here for 50 years. Dixon came to the United States at the age of 14 in 1974.
It's the removal proceedings, but it's really the detention that's the harder pill to swallow, because otherwise she could have just applied for relief from removal for which she's eligible on a non-detained setting.
Dixon didn't have issues traveling and returning before. Madriaga says had she known about the 2001 conviction,
There is no way I would have allowed her to fly.
Dixon is still in ICE custody, currently held at the Northwest ICE processing facility in Tacoma, awaiting her next hearing, which is scheduled for July. Now, Dixon isn't the only legal permanent resident detained by ICE from our state. Milad Aspari, an Iranian national, is in Tacoma as well, but his story is a story of life or death. This is Milad Aspari, green card holder, father to a U.S. citizen daughter, currently incarcerated in the Northwest ICE Processing Center after his arrest on February 20th. The possibility of deportation is threatening his life.
If he go back to Iran, they're gonna kill him for sure because of the religion.
Ruth, Aspari's girlfriend, whose identity we are hiding because she fears for her safety as she is also a green card holder, says Aspari fled religious and political persecution from the Islamic Republic because he is Kurdish. His entire family, including his mother, was killed in recent years for speaking out against the government. It's something Voice of Iran board member Carla Mutashimi is familiar with.
Anybody that speaks out about the government or that is a different religion other than Muslim, it's called corruption on earth.
Mutashimi says deportation for Aspari may as well be a death sentence.
The judge has blood on his hands if he goes back to Iran.
Ruth says Aspari's arrest started with a wrong turn. Aspari and his co-workers working 2 miles from the U.S.-Canadian border had to make a U-turn after crossing over to Canada by accident.
As soon as they get to the U.S. border, they arrested him. They said you was fleeing from the country. You was running away from the country because there is a no-contact order for you and you're not allowed to leave the country.
Ruth says that no-contact order stems from a verbal argument she had with him 3 years ago. Neighbors called police. Aspari was booked into jail and later bonded out after signing paperwork she says he didn't understand due to a language barrier that essentially convicted him of 4th-degree assault, a misdemeanor.
Clearly on the record, you're saying no assault happened.
No, nothing happened. He's not dangerous, and we love each other so much.
Ruth says she's been fighting to nullify the no-contact order ever since without success. And now that single misdemeanor conviction is the reason Aspari may be sent back to Iran. She's hoping her message will land in the right ears, fighting deportation, a matter of life or death for the father of her child.
He deserved to live longer. He deserved to stay with his daughter, and his daughter needs to see him too.
Aspari's next hearing date is currently scheduled for October. There, he will present evidence before the judge why he should be granted asylum. We'll be right back.
Once you've lost your visa, you're no longer legally in the United States, and we have a right, like every country in the world has a right, to remove you from our country.
I think a lot of these revocations are happening without due process or without proper explanations. So a lot of international students are just worried that it might happen to them next.
The hits to anyone with legal status in the United States keep coming. More than a dozen international students across Washington and Oregon have had their visas suddenly revoked by the Trump administration, all without warning. The University of Washington says at least 9 of its students have been affected. King 5's Bridget Chavez spoke exclusively with an attorney representing one of the students.
At this point, we know that 5 undergraduate students and 4 postgraduate students here at the University of Washington have had their student visas revoked. The university says they were given no notice, only that it's tied to immigration status violations.
Absolutely no due process at this point has been provided to these students.
Jay Gerson, an immigration and national security lawyer, is representing one of the 9 University of Washington students who had their visas pulled by the Trump administration.
It's just simply that they've been alleged to have some form of criminal activity, and therefore their status is being terminated.
Gerson says the UW student he represents is from China, but he's also representing students from Iran and South Africa.
There's no rhyme or reason to this. From what I've seen of other lawyers who have this, these students are from all over the world. There isn't any specific country.
Gerson says students have basically 3 options: leave the country, petition the government to be reinstated, or sue.
My clients are suing the U.S. government for failure to follow their own rules and regulations. Specifically, the challenge is to the students having not actually been convicted of a crime.
According to the New York Times, the United States issued more than 400,000 visas in 2024, and so far nearly 300 students have been abruptly stripped of their visas in recent days. Gerson says his clients are terrified.
This is having a major impact. It is leaving them nervous, afraid, and unsure of what to do in their lives.
Gerson says he's been in touch with other lawyers, and they say that this appears to be widespread, so there's not a specific country that's been targeted, but he says to the best of his knowledge, no students from Europe have had their visas revoked at this point. And Seattle U says that 3 recent graduates have had their visas revoked. In Seattle, Bridget Chavez, King 5 News.
In addition to UW and Seattle U, 2 international students at Gonzaga have also had their visas revoked. The University of Oregon confirms 4 of its international students recently had visas taken back.
Welcome back. Even before President Trump took office, he promised mass deportations, targeting, quote, the worst of the worst when it comes to criminals.
On day 1, I will launch the largest deportation program of criminals in American history.
But the recent weeks have shown ICE is taking into custody undocumented people who are not criminals.
Free them all! Free them all! Free them all!
Here's North Bureau Chief Eric Wilkinson.
The 25-year-old was taking his wife to work here in the tulip fields of Mount Vernon Tuesday morning when they were pulled over by ICE, and he was forcibly taken into custody.
Very scary. That's violent.
Alvaro Juarez says his brother Alfredo was exercising his right to remain silent after ICE agents pulled him over, smashed his window, and grabbed him from the car as his wife watched in horror.
She was very frightened. She's just like, she's never ever experienced this ever before. For me, it helped a lot having the overtime.
Alfredo Juarez, who goes by Lalo, is an outspoken member of the farm worker community, a union organizer advocating for better wages and working conditions.
For everyone to get a fair wage, for everyone to get a fair health care plan, he wants just fair pay, just some decency.
Juarez has no criminal record, but he is undocumented. Supporters say he was singled out for his political beliefs.
He is a community organizer. Again, he fights for farm worker justice, and we believe that he was targeted for everything that he's been doing.
Upon news of Juarez's detention, supporters rallied for his release yesterday. Congressman Rick Larson issuing a statement saying the Trump administration and ICE have claimed they're going after the worst of the worst, but there is no indication Juarez represents the worst of the worst. Governor Bob Ferguson adding, "I'm concerned about the reports I'm hearing. My team is working to get more information." As Juarez awaits his fate at the federal detention center in Tacoma, his supporters are appealing to Washington's governor and attorney general to stand up for the one they love.
We're not bad people. We're just here trying to make a living for our families.
Supporters of Juarez are planning regular protests at the ICE detention center in Tacoma until he is released. In Mount Vernon, Eric Wilkinson, King 5 News.
Rallies continue in support of Juarez's release. Currently, he does not have a next hearing date. These arrests, some violent, like in the case of Juarez's arrest, are happening not just here in Western Washington, but all over the state. An ICE arrest caught on camera in Spokane Valley in March raised questions about whether local law enforcement agencies assisted the feds.
On March 10th, it was near this intersection in Spokane Valley where ICE agents stopped Jason and Cesar Ruiz Rodriguez, two undocumented workers from Nicaragua. Jason's wife, Kayla Somariba, who was also in the car, says they were on their way to their court hearing related to criminal harassment charges when the agents surrounded their van.
They stopped us 2 blocks away from our house. It was like they were waiting for us to pass because it was right when we turned, they all came in and surrounded us.
In the video, you see agents breaking the windows as they try to pull the men out of the car. Last week, law enforcement analysts said what the agents did wasn't against the law because they had probable cause to arrest the men.
Oh my God!
Sumariba says she thinks the agents used excessive force.
You know, they're tasering him and, you know, just doing stuff that it's like, why are you guys being so, so brutal?
She also got suspicious that local cops must have been involved. The ICE agents knew where they would be, when they would show up, and exactly who was in the car.
They specifically, Jason and Cesar need to get out of the car. So they knew who was going to be in the car at what time.
This caught the attention of Kyle Madsen, Jason's attorney in his criminal harassment case. He says, quote, the fact that ICE was waiting for Mr. Ruiz Rodriguez while he was on his way to court clearly showed that someone shared this information.
In the discovery I received, there were reports from certain sheriff's officers, investigative analysts, detailing conversations they had had with various federal agencies. It was pretty clear they were collecting immigration information, which under Keep Washington Working is a violation of the law.
Madsen's motion included this report from a Spokane County Sheriff's digital analyst last year. They discussed the immigration status of Ruiz Rodriguez, their country of origin, and how they entered the U.S. through Florida. Madsen alleges his client was denied due process for his criminal harassment charges because now he is detained in Tacoma with a possibility of deportation.
Is that a right that everybody has regardless of immigration status?
Yes, absolutely. He should have been able to enjoy the same trial rights that all residents of Washington are able to enjoy.
Jason Ruiz Rodriguez, along with his brother Cesar, who was also taken into custody on the same day, remain at the Northwest ICE processing facility in Tacoma. What the officers did in the video that shows the brothers' arrest is not illegal, according to law enforcement experts.
In the door. No, you can! You can!
As they had probable cause to search their vehicle. But what happens when they do not have probable cause? What happens when ICE agents come to your door? Here's what you need to know about your rights when it comes to interacting with immigration officials. First and foremost, everyone has rights protected by the U.S. Constitution regardless of immigration status. These rights include the right to due process, legal representation, and protection against unreasonable searches and seizures. If immigration and customs enforcement agents come to your home, you don't have to open the door. Agents can only enter if they have a search warrant like this, issued by a court and signed by a judge. You can communicate with them through the window or a closed door. Do not lie or show false documents. You have the right to remain silent and to not sign any documents. You also have the right to decline any searches of your car or body unless, again, they have a signed search warrant. If they do have a search warrant, check if your name and address are correct. If not, then the warrant is invalid. You also have the right to take photos, videos, and write down details of what is happening. You can inform the agents you will be exercising your right to record. You cannot get in the way of their operations, though, and if they ask you to step back, you have to comply, but they cannot tell you to stop recording. So what should happen after an ICE encounter?
The best course of action is to call our deportation defense hotline. It's run by the Washington Immigrant Solidarity Network.
If you are outside of your home and encounter ICE agents, they cannot arrest you unless they have a warrant of removal signed by an immigration officer like this. However, this is not a search warrant, so they cannot search your home, car, body, or property. If you are driving and are pulled over, the officer can require you to show them your driver's license and insurance information, but you don't have to answer any questions about your immigration status. If you are arrested by police, you have the right to a government-appointed lawyer and the right to make a local phone call. If you are arrested by ICE, you have the right to consult a lawyer, but the government is not required to provide one for you. There have been numerous reports on social media of ICE activity across Washington state. While these posts may have good intentions, they can cause fear in many communities. The best way to verify is to check the social media pages of the Washington Immigrant Solidarity Network, which only posts verified locations and incidents.
We are doing everything we can at our disposal to prepare, protect, and of course make sure that people are not unnecessarily alarmed or in fear, that when there is a report, it is verified.
If you would like to see more immigration reporting from the Facing Race team, you can find them under the Washington Immigration page on king5.com. Thanks for joining us. For Facing Race, I'm Sharon Yoo.